Well, it's crazy to say, but Josh Rosen might be looking for his third team in his 3 years in the NFL now. So it's kind of sad how his career's gone so far. He's gone to two places where he really couldn't succeed. I mean, the offensive lines he was behind were ranked worse in the NFL in both years, and a lot of different coaching changes and stuff like that. So I personally feel bad for him. I thought he would have a better career by now, obviously. So Rosen was taken 10th overall in the 2018 draft. The Cardinals trade up to get him. And then a year later, of course, he's shipped to Miami because a new head coach comes in, Cliff Kingsbury, and Kingsbury just loved Kyler Murray, so there you go. I mean, that's basically why it happened. So he's shipped to Miami, starts maybe 4 or 5 games. I guess Brian Flores did not like what he saw, benches Rosen. Ryan Fitzpatrick plays majority of the season. The Dolphins got better as the second half went on, and yeah, Rosen really didn't play at all in the second half, if anything. So, look, I mean, I feel bad for him. As I said before, I was a fan of his coming out of college, and I did say back then, I mean, the only thing that can really derail his career was injuries or going to the wrong team. And I'll show you guys this video I said in the 2018, right before the 2018 draft, actually, so I'll play that for you guys. So, yes, I think Josh Rosen's going to be a star in this league. The only thing that's going to hold him back would be going to the wrong team or sustaining too many injuries. So yes, as you can see, I was very high on him coming out of UCLA. I wanted my team, the Giants, to take him second overall. At first, I wanted Baker Mayfield, but once the Browns took him, I kind of went elsewhere. So, I mean, look, I guess we dodged a bullet not taking Rosen, but I still, at the same time, feel he has untapped potential because of the situations he was in. I mean, there's really no quarterbacks, especially ones that need offensive lines. I mean, Rosen is somewhat mobile, but not the type of quarterback like Kyler Murray that can just, run like a 4-4 and just get out of every situation. So Rosen needs somewhat of an offensive line, and he's been behind two dumpster fires of offensive lines in his first 2 years. So I still believe he can, revive his career and save his career somewhere. I think if he went to the right team, he can still find a way to have a very solid NFL career. And as I said before, he's still 22 years old on this day. So, I mean, look, I think there's a chance for him in the NFL. I know most of you are probably out on him. And, I'm definitely not as high on him as I once was. I do feel maybe he's a little bit shook because of the way his career's gone so far. Maybe he's lost a lot of confidence. But at the same time, I feel like if we can get that same guy we saw at UCLA and put him in the right situation, I feel that can really benefit a certain NFL team out there. So we'll go over some possible scenarios of where Rosen can be traded to. I did say he has 2 years left on his contract, so it will take a trade to get him to a different team, but it probably won't cost him much because I don't think Miami really wants anything to do with the guy after this year. So I think the first question that has to be addressed before we get into these potential teams is why would teams even want Josh Rosen? So I wrote down some reasons here, 6 of them. So first one is the contract is very team friendly. He's making a little over $2 million over the next 2 years. He might have like a 5th-year option. I'm sure he does because he's a first-round pick, so there's probably a 5th-round option in there as well. So basically he has 3 years left on his contract based off if the team really wants him for that last year of his contract. Number 2, he was a top 10 pick in 2018. So you're not going to take a bum top 10 in the NFL. I know the Cardinals aren't like the best organization out there, but still, this guy was a really good player in college. I mean, some people, some experts had him number 1 on their board in terms of quarterbacks. So, I mean, yeah, Josh Rosen definitely has a lot of talent, and we haven't really seen it yet in the NFL. But look, I mean, he played, 3 or 4 years of college? I think it was 3 years of college. He was great for them, great for UCLA. So, I mean, look, there's definitely a lot of potential out there for a guy like Rosen. As I said, if you put him in the right situation, he's still just 22 years old, so you're not trading for like a 28-year-old quarterback here. This guy is still very young. He's still younger than Joe Burrow, by the way, who I think is already 23. So Rosen turns 23 next month. Number 4, he was set up to fail in Arizona and Miami. I mean, maybe some quarterbacks, as I said, with a lot of mobility could have maybe found the way to have some success there, but as I mentioned before, Rosen needs an offensive line. It doesn't have to be perfect, but he has to have somewhat of an offensive line, and really he had no chance. I mean, PFF had the Cardinals ranked last in 2018 for offensive line play, and the Miami Dolphins ranked last for 2019. So, I mean, I know PFF doesn't really sit well with some people, but still, I mean, there's really no other way I can really judge an offensive line. Number 5, his offensive lines, and I talked about this before, they were just ranked last in the NFL both times as a starter. And number 6, he has had 4 different offensive coordinators in his first 2 seasons in the NFL. So the guy has no stability. Another reason I feel bad for him. I think even in college, if you go back, I feel like he's had 6 coordinators in the last 5 years. I mean, so 4 in the NFL in 2 years. I think he had 3 with the Cardinals, and I think 1 last year. Chad O'Shea, who's already been fired after 1 year. So that really shows you how great of an offensive mind he was. So yeah, I mean, these are the reasons why a team would trade for Rosen. Maybe I'm missing some, and maybe you don't agree with these, but honestly, he's still a talented player, and if they can find that player that they once saw in college, I feel they can get a lot out of him. So option number one here is the Chicago Bears. This is a pretty obvious one. So their backup Chase Daniel of the last couple years is a free agent after this season. Mitch Trubisky hasn't really proved that he is the guy for the future. So I think if Trubisky has one more bad year or even a bad first half of next year, maybe even the first couple bad games of next year, he might be benched. So there's definitely some questions there. I said in a previous video, I think Marcus Mariota might be an option for the Bears as well. I do think they need a guy, a backup quarterback, like a legitimate option, not like a Chase Daniel type of guy. And I think Rosen can operate in the Matt Nagy offense. So, I mean, Mitch Trubisky and Josh Rosen, I guess, are somewhat similar. I mean, I think Mitch has some more mobility, but I think Josh is more accurate. So, I mean, I do think those guys can somewhat, play in the same offense. So I think Josh Rosen would have no problem adapting to that offense that he runs there. So, I think the Bears would be a nice fit. They have a decent offensive line. It's not great, but I mean, I think this would be a lot better than the Miami and Cardinals situation. So, option number one, I'll go with the Chicago Bears. Option number two is another obvious one, the LA Chargers. They had recently moved on from Phillip Rivers. There is a chance, and probably a good chance, they take a quarterback in this 2020 draft, but maybe the guy they select might sit for a whole year. Maybe that's the plan they have. Maybe Justin Herbert they take. Maybe they want him to sit for a full season. So they do have Tyrod Taylor as a backup quarterback. I think they can get out of his contract and save about $5 million if I remember correctly. So Tyrod is 30 years old. I mean, he did have a decent run in Buffalo at one point. They started a couple games for the Browns last year. So, I mean, Tyrod Taylor is just, your average quarterback. He does some nice things, but won't really take you over the top. So they could roll with him. I'd be surprised if they did, but of course I do think they draft a quarterback next year, or this draft coming up. So Rosen also grew up in the LA area, so I mean that definitely would be nice for him to kind of stay close to where he went to college and where he grew up. So it'd definitely be nice for him. And I don't know if he's the future for the Chargers, because if they take a Justin Herbert, they're going to want to give a guy like that an actual chance. So I don't know if this is the best long-term answer for Rosen, but I think in terms of getting a shot to start in 2020, I think the Chargers might be a good option. And these are in no particular order. I mean, I know I said option one, option two, but I'm kind of just like throwing these names out there, so you guys can rank them if you want, but I'm kind of just throwing some ideas out here. So I do think this makes sense. You don't have Phillip Rivers anymore, and the guy grew up in the area, so I think Josh Rosen to the Chargers would make some sense. Next, we have the Indianapolis Colts, and there have been some rumors about the team wanting to move on from Jacoby Brissett, so maybe this is a team that drafts a quarterback in the middle of the first round, which is where they're picking. I think it's pick number 13, I think it is, if I remember correctly. So yeah, they're in like the middle of the first round, a little higher than the middle, I guess. Their current backup, Brian Hoyer, can be cut with no dead cap next season. I think he makes a pretty decent amount too. I think Brian Hoyer's contract is paying him somewhere over like $5 million. It surprised me how much he was making, so there's that. And then Jacoby Brissett, I guess, has some injury concerns. I mean, he did miss time last year, only one game with an MCL sprain, but he was definitely like hindered by that when he came back. So there is a chance that, maybe the Colts want to move on from Brissett. I mean, I still feel he'll be there next year. I don't think they're going to move on completely, but it would not surprise me if the Colts try to bring in a young guy, and if they didn't land the guy in the draft that they wanted, maybe they resort to a Josh Rosen type of guy. So yes, I know that'd be a second option for them, but if the guy they want in the draft is not there and they can't trade up for a guy they want, then maybe they try and get a Josh Rosen type, and if Brissett doesn't work out next year, they can go to Rosen and see if they strike something there. But it's kind of a long shot. I don't really think that'll work exactly, because I think having Brissett there is going to throw everything off, and I think Brissett is a better quarterback right now, obviously, so I think Brissett will get the first shot next year, and I think if all goes right for the Colts, they'll draft a quarterback in this draft of their liking. Next, we have the Green Bay Packers, and we know that Josh Rosen has somewhat of a relationship with Aaron Rodgers. He's a guy that Josh Rosen looked up to, and those guys actually made like a video before Rosen was drafted. I watched that whole thing, of course, and they got along, so I think those guys can get along on the same team, obviously. So some people compare Josh Rosen to Aaron Rodgers based off their play style and their attitude and personality type. So, maybe if you put the same personalities together, it won't work, but then maybe if you put them together, it will work. So, I mean, that's like a touchy subject. I don't know, but maybe putting Rosen and Rodgers in the same locker room, it might backfire, but it also might be a really good thing as well. So Rodgers is 37 years old next season, does have somewhat of an injury history with the collarbone stuff, and he had the leg injury 2 years ago. So yeah, in the event that Aaron Rodgers goes down next year or something like that, I mean, God forbid, I like Rodgers a lot, so I hope it doesn't happen, but if it were to happen, I don't really know who the Packers backup quarterback is. I don't think he saw the field this year, but who's the guy, Brett Hundley or something, or whatever his name was, Nick Hundley, Brett Hundley, one of them was a catcher in baseball, but I think it's Brett Hundley. He was, I think, traded somewhere, so it's not him anymore, but yeah, whoever the Packers backup is. I can't even remember the guy's name, so can't be that good. So Josh Rosen, I mean, look, I mean, he is 15 years younger than Aaron Rodgers. Maybe they have a situation where, like, you know, kind of like the Brett Favre situation they had. I mean, I'm not calling Josh Rosen the next Aaron Rodgers, obviously, but if they could have a similar situation where Rodgers retires, you know, 3 years from now, and then Josh Rosen could step in when he's like 25 years old, which I think is around the age where Aaron Rodgers started to be a full-time starter, then maybe that could work out perfectly for them. So it's a low-risk, high-reward type of situation. You trade a 5th or a 6th round pick, probably like a 6th round pick for Josh Rosen, and maybe, you know, you have your quarterback of the future if everything works out. Next, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers, and of course, their quarterback, or their, quarterback one, Ben Roethlisberger, is coming off major elbow surgery or an injury. I guess it was both surgery and injury. Their backups, Mason Rudolph and Devlin Hodges, whatever it is. I think Devlin Duck Hodges, his name is. They really aren't the answer for the future, it seems like. I mean, Mason Rudolph had some decent moments where, like, they would throw 20 passes to the running backs and have this crazy offense, and Devlin Hodges had some good moments as well, but I really don't see those guys as the future, and I'm sure maybe the Steelers agree with that as well. Roethlisberger has contemplated retirement in the past, so we're not sure how much longer he'll be playing for. I think Roethlisberger signed a new contract maybe last offseason, so maybe he has 1 or 2 years left, but as I said before, Rosen's still young, so there's no rush here, and, Roethlisberger will be 38 years old next season, so, I mean, yeah, contemplating retirement, him being 38 years old, there might be a quarterback vacancy in Pittsburgh sooner or later. So if they have a guy like Rosen, they can groom him for 2 years, maybe make him the guy. And, I don't know if him and Mike Tomlin will get along exactly. I feel like they won't see eye to eye on some things. But look, I mean, Rosen is a talented guy, so maybe they give it a shot. As I said before, it would take a low draft pick to get him. So low risk, high reward once again. I just, this is like the scenario I don't see happening the most. I can, it's hard to envision him in Pittsburgh. They do have some competent backups, even though I don't think Rudolph or Hodges are the future, but this one will be a long shot in my opinion. Next, we have the Los Angeles Rams and their current backup, Blake Bortles. I forgot Bortles was on the Rams, honestly. That was surprising to see. He's a free agent after this season. He signed a 1-year deal. There has to be questions about Jared Goff's future. I mean, 2 years ago, Jared Goff was great, but then I guess teams figured him out. And, if he struggles again next year, there might be some concerns about his future there. So if he struggles in the middle of next year, maybe Sean McVay might want a quarterback change. And if you have a Josh Rosen on the bench, you can turn to him and see if that works. Goff had 21 turnovers in 2019, and, head coach Sean McVay cannot be too pleased about that. I know Josh Rosen turns the ball over a good amount himself, but I feel like if he was in the right situation, especially with an offensive mind like Sean McVay, he would be a lot better. So I think Rosen, talent-wise, can't be too far from Jared Goff, and maybe Rosen has something that Goff doesn't, and maybe he's a little better. I don't know. I just don't. I know that Goff has had a much more prestigious NFL career so far, but honestly, if you put these guys in like the same exact situation, I feel like Rosen can do what Goff does. Maybe I'm crazy, but like honestly, I feel like if he had the right situation, of course the Rams need a better offensive line. It was horrible last year, but if they get that fixed and get that worked out, and then you give Josh Rosen a good coach like Sean McVay and put him in the right situation, I feel he might have a good career. And then once again, Rosen grew up in the LA area, so that would be another good move for him. And lastly, we have the New England Patriots, last but definitely not least, I should say. So their current backup, Jarrett Stidham, seems like a project. He was only a 4th-round pick, so there's no guarantees even on the roster next year. I mean, my team, the Giants, took a quarterback in the 4th round. He didn't even make it to the next season, so it is possible a guy like that is cut. I think Stidham came in one time last year through like a pick 6, and yeah, I can't really judge a guy off one bad drive, but still, it's not promising. And when I saw him at Auburn, I mean, I definitely watched some of him. I thought he could have been like an average backup in the NFL. I really didn't see a starting NFL type quarterback in him, but maybe the Patriots know something I don't, so we'll see. Tom Brady has to retire at some point. I think he's going to be 43 now next year. Is it 43, 44? I think it's 43. Of course, he's a free agent currently, so we're not 100% certain he's with the Patriots next year, but I did say in my prediction video for the NFL offseason, I do think that Tom Brady will be back with the Patriots. It would surprise me if he wasn't. Rosen gives them an upgrade at backup quarterback and could even be the franchise quarterback down the line, so I think learning under a Tom Brady for a couple of years would be phenomenal. I mean, of course, learning under a Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Ben Roethlisberger, some of these situations for Rosen would be just great, and yeah, these guys are just getting up there in age, and I mean, eventually you have to move on, so I think this would be a great spot for Rosen. You have a good defense behind you, have a really good offensive line every year. I saw Dante Scarnecchia retired recently, but hopefully the Patriots offensive line is still good for the years to come. So this would be a great move for Rosen. It might be the best move for him, honestly. So maybe I put this one last for that reason, but I think that'll do it for this video. Pretty sure I have every logical outcome for Rosen. I mean, maybe he stays with the Dolphins. I personally can't see that happening, but I guess crazier things have happened. He's still on a cheap contract as well, but I'm assuming that Rosen wants a shot to play, so I don't think he wants to sit in Miami and rot on the bench. So, once again, I hope he gets his career on track. I do feel bad for the guy. I hope he goes in this situation next year where the team he goes on is not a complete joke, but the way his career has gone so far, it would not surprise me. So I hope he's in a better situation next year. As I said, it won't take much to trade for him, probably a 5th or a 6th round pick, maybe even a 7th round pick. And so if I was a team that needed a quarterback, I would take that shot. I mean, look, if my team, the Giants, traded for him like for a 6th round pick, it would not really, I'd be fine with it because it's a 6th round pick and you're still getting a talented quarterback behind Daniel Jones. So look, I'd be fine with it. I'm sure most teams would like a Josh Rosen. I mean, maybe you're a fan that doesn't like him at all. So I mean, we definitely have different perspectives on a guy like this. There are fans that don't like him, so I get where you're coming from. I know he doesn't have the best personality in some people's opinions. I mean, I personally think he's a fine teammate. I really haven't heard complaints about him, so I don't know where those narratives come from, but I don't know. We'll see what the future holds for him, and if I had to take a guess as to where he goes, I mean, put myself on the spot here, but let me look at these teams one more time. Let me look at the list. I would guess that he goes to the LA Chargers or the Bears. I'm going to say the Chargers. That's my one guess. Maybe the Bears as well. So I think the Chargers would be great for him. I think the Rams would be great for him as well. One of those LA teams, go back to where you're from, and hopefully it'll make the adjustment to the NFL much more easy for him. Obviously going from Arizona to Miami and then all the way back to LA is kind of crazy, but if it's where he grew up, it'll probably be a lot easier for him. So hopefully it's the easiest outcome for him, and I wish him the best. So once again, that'll do it. Let me know in the comments where you think Josh Rosen will end up next year. Maybe you don't care at all, but I'm sure some of you might care. So if you're a fan of a team that wants him, then let me know. I'm kind of interested in that stuff. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you next time.